They say a front door tells a story, not with words but with the small silent things around it. The chipped welcome mat, the old wind chime, and yes, especially the plants. Most of us choose greenery based on beauty, convenience, or tradition. A pot of ivy for charm, a cactus for style, a rose bush because it's always been there. But what if these familiar choices are quietly shaping more than just your curb appeal? Feng Shui isn't about superstition, it's about how your space feels, functions, and feeds back into your daily life. And the truth is, some of the most popular front yard plants don't support that flow, they block it, not intentionally, not dramatically, but subtly, through shapes, textures, placements that send mixed messages to the energy that tries to reach you. This video isn't here to make you paranoid about your porch. It's here to help you look again, more carefully, more consciously. Because some plants don't just grow, they cling, they guard, they mourn. And when placed by your entrance, they don't just decorate the threshold, they define it. Let's walk through 9 beautiful common plants that may be doing more harm than good, and what to do instead, simply and gently, without redesigning your life. Starting with one that looks harmless but has thorns you may not see. Plant 1. Cactus, the sharp gatekeeper. Cactuses are everywhere now, front porches, kitchen windows, office desks. Their clean lines and low-maintenance nature make them a favorite for modern spaces. They're sculptural, tidy, and undeniably trendy. But if there's one place where a cactus might be doing more harm than good, it's at your front door. At first glance, they seem like the perfect choice, tough, stylish, nearly impossible to kill. And in a world where we're constantly trying to simplify and protect our energy, that sounds like a win. But here's where things get more complicated. In the quiet language of energy, something every home speaks whether we realize it or not, cactuses don't say peace, they don't say welcome, they say stay away. Think about it. A cactus is a survivor, yes, but it survives by defending itself. Every needle is a warning, every spike is a barrier. And when we place that kind of energy at the very entrance to our homes, the space meant to invite in support, opportunity, and connection, we're sending mixed signals. We might think we're welcoming calm, but we're actually posting energetic do not disturb signs at the gates of our own lives. You might not feel it instantly, most people don't, but over time it shows up in subtle, persistent ways. A heaviness when you walk in, small tensions in your relationships, a sense that things in your life keep hitting invisible walls. It's not that the cactus causes problems, but it reinforces an emotional posture of guardedness. And when you're always on guard, it's hard to grow, hard to receive, hard to breathe. I once worked with a couple in Arizona. They had twin-barrel cactuses on either side of their front steps, big, golden, symmetrical, like little soldiers. The house was beautiful, but something always felt off. The husband said he was constantly on edge after coming home from work. The wife mentioned rising tension between their teenage boys. No big explosions, just friction, fatigue, the kind of emotional static that doesn't go away. When I suggested they move the cactuses and replace them with softer, upward-growing plants, they hesitated, but they tried. Within weeks, they reported sleeping better, fewer arguments, lighter moods, a new rhythm in the house. Nothing else changed, just the message at the door. And that's what a cactus becomes if we're not careful, a message. Not to the mailman or the neighbors, but to ourselves. To the energy we say we want, but might still be afraid to receive. When your front door says protect, your life responds with caution. When it says welcome, the world meets you differently. Now, does this mean you have to throw your cactus away? Not at all. Context matters. A cactus in a private workspace, a sunlit windowsill, or a backyard meditation spot can be a beautiful, energetic ally, helping you hold boundaries, stay focused, reclaim strength. But the front door isn't where we armor up. It's where we soften, where we open, where we say, I'm ready. So if you have a cactus at your entrance, here's what you can do. Gently move it to a space that supports introspection, privacy, or structure, a home office, a back porch, somewhere it can offer quiet strength without guarding the door. Then in its place, bring in something that invites, like a fern, a peace lily, or a rounded leaf plant that says growth lives here. Even better, pair your entryway with something that reflects light or moves softly in the breeze. A chime, a lantern, a simple bowl of stones, anything that clears, not cautions. And if all this sounds too subtle to matter, remember, your home learns from you, your habits, your hesitations, your hopes. And when the first thing it sees each day is a plant that bristles instead of breathes, it adjusts. So do you. The truth is, you don't need to be perfect to shift the energy of your life. You just need to pay attention. And today, it might start with one plant, one small gatekeeper at the door. One message rewritten not in words but in presence. Let your home say what you're finally ready to hear. You don't need to protect everything. Some things are meant to enter. Some things like ease, like clarity, like joy, are just waiting for a softer place to land. Plant 2, dying plants, the energy of giving up. You probably walk past it every day. A plant on your porch, maybe near the mailbox or the front steps. The part is still there, but the leaves are brittle. The soil is dry. Maybe it used to bloom. Maybe it was a gift, but now it's just hanging on quiet, forgotten, half alive. Most of us don't mean to keep dead or dying plants near the front of our homes. We just forget, or we get used to them. Or we tell ourselves it's not that bad, that we'll replace it soon. But here's the thing, what we tolerate in our environment, we start to tolerate in our energy. And that changes everything. In Feng Shui, a dying plant isn't just a gardening issue, it's a mirror. It reflects something we've stopped tending, something we've let slide. A quiet resignation that becomes part of the space. And nowhere is that message more powerful than at your front entrance, the place where energy enters your home, where new things begin. When the first thing the world sees is something decaying, the message becomes clear. This space accepts decline. This house is holding on, not reaching forward. Now maybe that sounds harsh, but think about how it feels. Ever noticed how your energy shifts when you walk into a room that's full of life? Fresh air, green leaves, light streaming through. Compare that to a room with wilted stems, dry soil and dust. One lifts, one lowers. We may not always register it consciously, but our nervous system does, your home does, your front door does. And it's not just about aesthetics, it's about patterns. A single dying plant might seem small, but it begins to speak to the bigger story. Missed deadlines, delayed decisions, lingering fatigue, relationships that feel stagnant. Money that comes in but doesn't stay. Not because the plant caused it, but because it mirrors a frequency of stuckness and we unknowingly adjust to match it. I once worked with a woman in California. She had a small succulent near her mailbox that had clearly died during winter. She didn't notice it anymore. It had just become part of the background, but in the same season she started feeling emotionally drained. Bills were paid late. Mail went missing. Communication with her neighbors got tense, even though nothing had really changed. When we finally removed the plant, she said it felt like her house could breathe again. Within a week, her mail delivery became smoother. A neighbor apologized for a past conflict. Small things, but meaningful ones. You don't have to believe in magic to believe in patterns. Our environments shape us quietly and constantly. And when the entrance to your life begins with signs of neglect, the rest of your experience tends to follow that tone, not out of punishment, just out of rhythm. There's also an emotional layer here we don't often talk about. Many people keep dying plants because they feel guilty. Maybe it was a housewarming gift. Maybe it reminds them of someone they miss. Maybe it once thrived and now letting it go feels like admitting something else is gone too. That's valid and human. But here's the gentle truth. Keeping something just because it once mattered doesn't mean it still serves you. A dried plant at your door isn't honoring the past, it's anchoring you in it. And anchors are only helpful if you want to stay exactly where you are. So what do you do with that plant, the one you haven't touched in months, the one that's become invisible through habit? First, notice it, really see it. Ask what part of you it's been silently representing. Is it a piece of hope that's faded, a chapter that's closed but still sits at the door? Then thank it. You don't need to feel ashamed. Just acknowledge its presence and let it go with respect. Wrap it gently, recycle it, return it to the earth and in its place. Don't rush to fill the void, be intentional. If you want to invite career growth, choose something upright and strong like lucky bamboo or a healthy snake plant. If it's emotional healing you're seeking, pick a flowering plant that brings softness like a peace lily or chrysanthemum. And if you're unsure, even a clean pot of stones or a small lantern can be enough to shift the tone. The point isn't perfection, it's alignment. Because the first thing you pass when you come home sets the tone for everything after. And the smallest neglected thing, if it sits there long enough, starts to define how your life feels. Cluttered, delayed, a little heavier than it needs to be. You don't have to change your whole house. You don't even need to buy anything new. But maybe, just maybe, today is the day to clear the old leaf, to lift the weight of what's already gone, and to tell the energy that's been waiting at your doorstep, I'm ready now for something alive, something clear, something that grows. Plant 3, weeping willow, the anchor of sadness. Some trees don't just grow, they linger, they lean, they pull you into something slower, heavier, harder to name. The weeping willow is one of the most visually poetic trees in nature. Its sweeping branches, its graceful sway, that hush it brings to a space almost like a whisper in the wind. But behind that beauty there's a weight, and when planted near your home, especially near the entrance, it doesn't just shape the landscape, it shapes the energy that lives there. Weeping willows carry an emotional frequency many of us recognize without ever saying it out loud. They evoke stillness, yes, but not always the restful kind. More often it's the stillness of unprocessed grief, quiet resignation, lingering sadness that feels beautiful only because we've gotten used to it. That's what makes the weeping willow tricky. It doesn't scream disharmony, it doesn't appear aggressive or chaotic. In fact, it draws people in, offering shade, silence, even comfort. But it's the kind of comfort that keeps you curled inward instead of reaching outward. The kind of quiet that slows momentum, dulls ambition, and blurs your sense of possibility. I've walked through neighborhoods where weeping willows frame the entire front yard, their branches brushing against windows, casting shadows on porches. And every time, without fail, the homeowners described a similar feeling: low energy, lack of motivation, a heaviness they couldn't quite name. It's peaceful, one woman told me, but it's also stuck. That word stuck came up again and again. Relationships that felt like routines, ideas that never moved past daydream, a home that looked serene but felt dim. And the truth is, energy isn't just about motion, it's about emotion. What you plant around your home speaks to what you're willing to feel and what you might be unintentionally holding onto. The weeping willow, for all its beauty, often becomes a physical metaphor for holding grief in place, for letting sadness become scenery. There's also a practical side. Willows are thirsty trees. Their roots spread far and fast in search of water. Over time, they can interfere with plumbing, sidewalks, even the foundation of a house. And while most people plant them for aesthetic reasons, the long-term effect is often damage, slow, hidden, expensive. Just like emotional weight that goes unspoken, just like sadness that settles into the walls. This doesn't mean weeping willows are bad trees. They're sacred in many cultures, valued for their medicine, their shelter, their beauty. But in feng shui terms, they don't belong at the front of a home. Because the front of your home isn't just about how it looks, it's about how it welcomes life in. It's the handshake between your personal energy and the outside world. And willows by nature don't welcome, they weep. So what if you already have a willow near your entrance? Do you have to cut it down? Not necessarily. Start by observing, how close is it to the door? Do its branches block light, obscure the view, create too much shade? If so, consider trimming back the canopy. Let the sun reach your home again. Create openness where there was overhang. You can also rebalance the energy with movement. Add wind chimes, lanterns, or upward-growing plants like bamboo or sunflowers nearby to counter the downward pull. If the tree is too dominant or too close, you may need to remove it altogether. And that can feel like a big decision, especially if the tree has been there for years. But sometimes we outgrow what once comforted us, and letting go of that weight makes space for something new to rise in its place. Something that lifts rather than leans. And if you're choosing new trees to plant near your home, ask yourself not just what's beautiful, but what uplifts, what grows upward with clarity, what lets in light, not just casts shade. Trees like redbud, crepe myrtle, or flowering cherry bring softness, color, and motion without anchoring your energy in sorrow. The real point isn't to judge your landscape, it's to listen to it, to notice what emotion your front yard has been quietly holding, to recognize when beauty has turned into inertia, and to give yourself permission to release the weight of what no longer reflects where you're going. Because your home, just like your life, deserves more than still sadness. It deserves joy that moves, peace that breathes, growth that reaches for the sky instead of draping toward the ground. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do isn't to fix what's broken, it's to remove what's quietly pulling you down, even if it's beautiful, even if it's been there forever, even if it once made you feel safe. Let your entrance be a place of uplift. Let your home begin with light. And if there's a tree that's been holding your sadness for too long, maybe it's time to let it rest too. Plant 4. Bonsai beauty under constraint. Bonsai trees are undeniably beautiful. Their quiet strength, their delicate curves, their timeless stillness. They look like wisdom in plant form, ancient, intentional, serene. People love to place them on entry tables, office shelves, windowsills, and why not? They bring a sense of grace, a sense of calm. But beneath that calm is a truth we often overlook. Every bonsai is beautiful because it's been kept small. That's the part that matters in energy work. Bonsai trees don't grow naturally into their shape. They're trained, trimmed, wired into position. Every branch is bent to obey a design, and that design, while lovely, comes at a cost. When you place a bonsai near the entrance of your home, especially in a space meant to invite growth, movement, expansion, you're introducing a quiet message. Stay controlled, stay small, don't stretch too far. And maybe that's the very thing you've been trying to change. Maybe you've been hoping for more clarity, more freedom, a sense that something in your life can finally open. But if the first object you see each morning is a tree that has survived only by being restrained, that message seeps in. Not loudly, not instantly, but slowly, consistently, just like the wires that bend its branches over time. In Feng Shui, the front of the home is a place of emergence. It's the mouth of energy, the space where opportunity, creativity, and connection flow in. Everything placed there holds meaning whether or not we see it. And a bonsai, while elegant, doesn't invite expansion. It models restraint, it teaches limitation, it reflects the belief that beauty requires control. One client I worked with had a large bonsai in her entryway. It had been a retirement gift, a gesture of admiration, of closure. She cared for it meticulously, but in the years that followed, she noticed a strange pattern. Her world started shrinking. Friends moved away, she hesitated to take trips, her creativity stalled. She began second-guessing every decision. She couldn't quite explain it, but she felt like her life had become smaller without meaning to. When we finally discussed the bonsai not as a plant but as a symbol, she went quiet. "I think I've been living like that tree," she said, "trying to look graceful while bending myself around other people's expectations." That moment changed everything. She didn't get rid of the bonsai, she moved it, gave it a place in her meditation room where its energy matched the intention, stillness, contemplation, humility. At her entrance, she placed a vibrant potted fern, its leaves full and wide, reaching in every direction. Within a month, she began painting again. Within 3, she traveled to see her sister for the first time in years. Nothing magical, just a shift, a release. The point here isn't that bonsai trees are bad. They are not. They are living works of art, reflections of patience and care. But like all art, they carry meaning. And when we live with something long enough, its meaning starts to blend with ours. If your life feels boxed in, paused, or overly controlled, look at the symbols surrounding you. Are they open? Are they wild, fluid, growing? Or are they beautiful but rigid? Bonsai trees belong in spaces where containment is supportive, places where you go inward, where quiet is needed, where reflection is the goal. A bonsai on a bedroom nightstand, a desk in a private study, or even a bathroom shelf can offer grounding. But at your front entrance, it sends the wrong signal. That energy doesn't just greet guests, it greets your day, your momentum, your movement, and it matters. So if you have a bonsai at your door, ask yourself, has life felt more about managing than expanding lately? Have your goals felt shaped by others instead of led by you? If so, you don't need to blame the plant, but maybe it's time to reassign its role, to give it a spot where its symbolism serves you rather than holds you, and in its place choose something that grows freely. A plant that lifts, spreads, curves in ways you don't try to tame. A symbol not of control but of permission, because sometimes the smallest messages, like a tiny tree in a porcelain pot, become the loudest truths in your home. Let your entrance say what you're finally ready to believe. Beauty doesn't have to be bound. You don't have to hold yourself tight just to feel worthy. You can stretch, you can open, you can grow without asking for permission. Your home will echo that shift, and so will your life. Plant 5, ivy and creeping vines, entanglement disguised as charm. At first glance, ivy is enchanting. It softens fences, hides flaws in brick, gives a home an old-world charm like something out of a storybook. Creeping vines do the same. They feel romantic, poetic, even grounding. But beauty, especially when left unchecked, can slowly become a trap. And the quiet truth about these plants is this: what wraps, clings, and spreads without boundaries can start to mirror something deeper, something you might not even realize you've been living with. Ivy doesn't grow upward, it grows over, around, across. It doesn't know when to stop. It covers whatever it touches, pulling itself through cracks, anchoring into any surface it can find. And when it lives on or near the front of your home, it creates a kind of energetic message that sounds gentle but feels stifling. That message: tangle first, ask later. You might not notice the shift right away, but slowly you begin to feel overwhelmed without knowing why. Decisions take longer, clarity fades, conversations feel circular. Your mind, once open and organized, begins to spiral. Your home, instead of greeting you with fresh energy, starts to wrap you in something heavier, harder to name. Because that's what ivy does. It doesn't just decorate, it entangles. It blurs the outline of everything it touches, doorways, fences, even light. It replaces structure with shadow. And in energy work, that kind of creeping, covering presence doesn't just change how your home looks, it changes how life moves through it. I once worked with a woman who had ivy growing beautifully across her porch arch. It gave her house this cozy, tucked-away look she loved. But over time, she began to feel more and more stuck in her routine. She described her mornings as foggy and her choices as overcomplicated. Her daughter had started pulling away emotionally, and she wasn't sure why. When we stood at her front door, the first thing I noticed was how little sunlight reached the threshold. The ivy had grown so thick, it was casting the entire entrance in shadow. Her energy, bright, funny, sharp, was being met by a wall of vines. Within a week of removing most of it and trimming back what remained, she said something strange happened. Conversations felt clearer. Her mood lifted. She stopped procrastinating. The house didn't just look brighter, it felt lighter. Of course, not all ivy is bad, not all vines are toxic, but the key is containment and context. When used sparingly, vines can soften hard edges or frame a space with warmth. But when left to roam freely, especially around the front of your home, they send a different kind of signal: confusion, muddled flow, energy that gets tangled on the way in and lost on the way out. And that confusion starts to leak into your life. You may find yourself saying yes to things you don't want, simply because the boundary was never clear. You may find old emotions resurfacing, looping thoughts replaying, or tasks taking longer than they should. Not because you're lazy or unfocused, but because the environment around you is blurring more than it's guiding. Ivy doesn't just grow across wood and stone, it grows into the rhythm of your life. This is where gentle change becomes powerful. If you have ivy or vines climbing the front of your home, start by stepping back. Literally, stand at the end of your driveway and look at your entrance. Is it open? Is it bright? Can you see the lines of your door, your windows, your path, or does it feel covered, blurred, harder to define? If it's the latter, it may be time to trim back, not with anger or urgency, but with intention. Leave a little if you love it, but restore the doorway. Let light touch the threshold again. Create space for energy to move clearly, freely, without needing to twist around corners. And if you're looking for a replacement, something that offers softness without suffocation, consider upright plants with strong structure. Lavender, ornamental grasses, even climbing roses when trained carefully can provide beauty without blurring. The key is direction, growth that moves upward, not across, that enhances space, not claims it, because your home isn't meant to hide you, it's meant to reveal you. And the first impression it gives to the world, to energy, to you, is shaped by what surrounds the door. When that space is tangled, life becomes tangled. When it's clear, life starts to move again. So ask yourself this: is your front entrance pulling energy in or holding it hostage? Are your days unfolding freely or getting caught in loops? And what might shift not just outside but inside if you cleared a path? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is untangle what once felt beautiful but now just feels stuck. Plant 6. Cotton trees or nectar-heavy plants. Invitations for disruption. Some plants don't block energy, they don't hold sadness, they don't tangle or shrink your space. Instead, they invite, they offer sweetness, fragrance, color, movement, and in that they seem harmless, even joyful. But sometimes what they invite in isn't what you want. Cotton trees, nectar-heavy flowers, or any plant that draws insects and flying distractions may look like they bring life, but in energy terms, they often invite chaos. Not dramatic, not obvious, but constant and cumulative. Think about it. You walk to your front door and a few bees hover. A wasp nest hides behind a flower box. Ants trail along the edge of the pot. At first, it's a minor annoyance. You swat something away, you shrug it off. But over time, your body learns to brace every time you approach your home. The threshold becomes a place of vigilance instead of relief. The sweetness these plants offer, rich blossoms, sticky scents, soft petals, becomes bait. And the energy at your entrance shifts from calm to alert, from rest to tension. We don't usually think of insects as energy, but in Feng Shui, movement matters. Rapid, buzzing, darting motion near the mouth of energy, the front of your home, can fracture focus. It creates mental static. Even if you're not consciously thinking about it, your nervous system is responding. And when your entry is home to constant fluttering, crawling, buzzing movement, that background noise begins to seep into your inner world. You forget what you were about to say. You feel rushed for no reason, your thoughts scatter, things get missed, and somehow everything just feels off. I remember visiting a friend in Georgia whose front porch was wrapped in flowering vines and big, lush pots of sweet-smelling blooms. It looked like a postcard, but she said she rarely used the front door anymore. She'd started going through the garage. "It's just easier," she said. "I don't have to deal with the bugs." She didn't realize that her own entrance had become a place of avoidance, that the constant presence of bees and ants drawn to beauty was quietly pushing her away from her own threshold. When we cleared the pots and replaced them with subtle greens, a wind chime, and a small bowl of river stones, her front porch became usable again. And more than that, she started feeling more grounded, more centered. Her mornings felt less scattered. Nothing huge had changed, except the way she entered her life, because that's what the front door is. Not just an architectural feature, but the transition point between your inner world and the world outside. And when it's surrounded by plants that attract tiny chaos, your whole day begins on a note of low-grade tension. Of course, not all blooming or fragrant plants are disruptive. The key here is moderation and location. A few well-placed flowers in the garden, lovely, but placing nectar-rich, insect-attracting species right beside your door, especially in still air or shaded spaces, can backfire. Think jasmine, trumpet vines, honeysuckle, cottonwood, even overly ripe fruit trees. All of them say come feed, not just to butterflies, but to gnats, bees, flies, and more. And once that frequency settles in, it becomes hard to shake. If your home feels louder lately, more interruptions, more tension, more technology going haywire, it's worth looking at the subtle sources. What's physically cluttering your entrance? What's energetically buzzing there? What have you invited in without realizing the full guest list? The solution isn't to strip away all beauty, it's to choose your invitations carefully. If you want color and light, go for non-fruiting succulent, silvery herbs like sage or rosemary, or soft-leaved greenery like hostas. If you love scent, opt for lavender or mint, gentle, protective, naturally repellent to pests. And if you want movement, choose wind-driven elements like chimes or flags instead of nectar that draws winged distractions. Let your front entrance breathe, let it hold space. Let it whisper, not buzz, because you deserve to enter your home without dodging, without flinching, without having to brace. You deserve to cross the threshold with presence and to begin each day grounded, not scattered. Your home listens, it adapts. And when you reclaim your entrance as a place of stillness, not sweetness that swarms, you'll feel the difference in your thoughts, in your sleep, in the way conversations land instead of ricocheting. So today, take a look. Are you growing peace or just drawing in beautiful distractions? Because sometimes the kindest thing you can plant is nothing at all. Plant 7, thorny roses and bougainvillea beauty that bites back. There's something seductive about a rose bush. The elegance of each petal, the soft curve of its bloom, that sense of timeless beauty it carries like a memory passed down. Bougainvillea does the same, wild, vibrant, almost tropical in its explosion of color. Both are breathtaking, both are captivating, and both can cut you when you're not looking. It's easy to forget that roses have thorns until your hand brushes one. Bougainvillea too, beneath all that color, its stems are covered in sharp, hooking spikes. And when we place these plants near the front of a home where energy is meant to flow freely in, they become more than just flowers. They become a warning, an emotional metaphor, a boundary wrapped in silk. Because here's the truth. Thorny plants near your entrance confuse the energy of welcome. They send two messages at once, beauty and danger, invitation and defense. And when those mixed signals sit at the door of your life, they begin to echo through everything else. Relationships that feel beautiful but tense. Opportunities that come close but don't land. A house that looks perfect but feels guarded. Most people don't plant thorny roses or bougainvillea to push people away. They do it for color, for curb appeal, for tradition. But energy doesn't respond to intention, it responds to presence. And the presence of thorns at your threshold is no small detail. It's a signal of protection at a place meant for opening. I once worked with a woman in Florida. Her front gate was flanked by two enormous bougainvillea arches, pink and breathtaking, but they were so overgrown they scratched anyone who walked too close. Packages were left at odd angles. Visitors hesitated. Her own daughter stopped using the front door. Inside the house, things felt tense, like everyone was walking on eggshells. She'd never connected the plants to the mood, but when she finally trimmed them back, restoring space around the entrance, everything shifted. Conversations softened. The house felt easier to enter, not just for others, but for her, because that's the heart of it. Thorns don't just repel strangers, they often reflect a guardedness we've placed around ourselves, a fear of being hurt again, a need to be admired but not touched, a desire to be seen but only from a distance. And that energy, when placed at the entry of your home, becomes the tone of your life, controlled, cautious, closed in just enough to keep things safe, but also out of reach. Of course, not all thorny plants are wrong. There's a time for boundaries, a time to say no, but your entrance isn't that time. Your entrance is the one place where openness matters most, where you say to the world, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm safe enough to let good things in. If you love roses, there are ways to work with them gently. Move them farther from the threshold, along fences, garden borders, side yards. Keep them trimmed, let their blooms shine without letting their thorns block the path. If bougainvillea is your favorite, consider training it high above an arch well out of reach, where its beauty can flow without cutting the way forward. And if you've been feeling emotionally prickly, overly sensitive, quick to judge, slow to trust, just notice what's planted around your front door. Sometimes the energy we project outside is just a reflection of what we've been carrying inside. Try replacing thorny plants with soft, open-bloom flowers. Hydrangeas, peonies, lavender, or even leafy greens with round, smooth edges. Let the message at your door be clear, not conflicted. Let it say, beauty can be safe, love doesn't have to sting. You can bloom without biting back, because how we greet the world becomes how the world greets us. And if you've been unknowingly saying, approach with caution, then it makes sense why life feels like it keeps its distance. Your home deserves more than beauty wrapped in pain. You deserve softness that doesn't sacrifice strength. And your threshold, the very line between who you are and what's coming, deserves a message free of thorns. So today, just look, are the flowers at your door blooming with ease or blooming with armor? You don't have to rip anything out. You don't have to start over. You only have to ask, what kind of welcome do I really want to give? Because when the invitation is clear, everything changes, the right people come, the right energy enters, and suddenly your life stops walking on eggshells and starts walking into something new. Plant 8. Memory plants what you haven't let go of. Some plants aren't chosen for their beauty or their scent or their meaning in a guidebook. They're kept because they came from someone or some moment. A plant from your mother's garden, a cutting from your old home, a tree you planted when your children were small. They're memory plants, and in many ways they feel sacred, personal, untouchable. But over time they can become something else, something heavier. A silent obligation, a symbol of who you used to be or who you feel you can't let go of. And when that plant lives at the entrance of your home, it can begin to shape more than just your nostalgia. It can hold the past right at your doorstep and block the future from coming in. Memory plants often start with love, but love tied too tightly to what can become grief that refuses to move. I once worked with a woman who had a small potted tree near her front door. It had long since stopped thriving, its leaves sparse, its branches dull. It was from my sister, she whispered. Her sister had passed 4 years earlier. The tree had become her way of staying close, but the more we stood near it, the more she realized it wasn't offering comfort anymore. It was anchoring her in sorrow. She didn't want to let it go. She was afraid of what that meant. But the truth is, memory doesn't live in the object, it lives in you. And keeping something at your threshold, especially when it no longer brings joy, sends a subtle but powerful message to your energy. I'm not done grieving. I'm not ready for new life. I live where I once was. And that's what makes memory plants tricky. They don't shout, they don't disturb, but they murmur, they soften the present, they tint the now with too much then. And when energy enters your home through a veil of loss or sentiment that hasn't been rebalanced, it slows. It sags. It waits. This doesn't mean you should never keep meaningful plants, but it does mean you should ask, does this still lift me, or does it quietly hold me back? Memory, when honored consciously, becomes strength, but when kept unconsciously out of guilt, fear, or habit, it becomes weight. And weight, no matter how small, changes how we move. If you have a plant by your door that reminds you of someone or some time, ask yourself what that memory is doing. Is it soothing? Or is it preserving something that needs to evolve? Is it a tribute, or is it a tether? Sometimes all a memory plant needs is relocation. Move it to a garden bench, a quiet window, a place where reflection belongs. Sometimes it needs to be let go entirely, returned to the earth with gratitude, not guilt. And sometimes the act of trimming it, repotting it, or pairing it with something new is enough to shift the energy. You can even create a ritual, light a candle beside it, speak the memory out loud, say thank you for the moment, for the love, for what it gave, and then say, I choose to live forward now, because your front door is where life meets you. And when that space is crowded with yesterday, today has nowhere to land. Your dreams, your clarity, your next chapter, they need room. If you're unsure whether a plant is holding memory or simply holding space, pay attention to how it makes you feel when you pass it. Do you inhale or do you hold your breath? Do you feel connected or do you feel paused? That pause matters. That breath matters, and if your threshold has become a shrine, however subtle, then part of your energy is still in the past, waiting. Releasing a memory plant doesn't erase what mattered. It doesn't mean forgetting, it means making peace. It means choosing to love what was without needing it to stand guard at your front door. Because the most powerful homes don't just protect your history, they invite your future. And the space between the two, the doorway, is where intention lives. So today, ask yourself gently, what memory have I been guarding with leaves and roots? And what might open softly if I finally let it go? Because sometimes the things we keep out of love are the very things that keep us from receiving more of it. Plant 9, moisture-heavy plants, energy that soaks but never uplifts. Some plants feel lush, cool to the touch, heavy with water even when it hasn't rained. They sit thick in the air, holding moisture in their leaves, their stems, their scent, ferns, elephant ears, certain mossy parts that seem to drink and never dry. These are the moisture-heavy plants, ones that saturate the space around them, not in beauty or bloom, but in weight, in slow, damp stillness that looks alive but never quite lifts. At first, they seem grounding. They look healthy, almost luxurious, like something from a spa or forest floor. But placed near your front door, they create a kind of energetic fog, a heaviness, a cool, wet pause. And over time, that pause becomes something more. It becomes a drag, not loud, not obvious, but present, constant. A soaked cloth draped across the start of your day. In Feng Shui, moisture represents emotion. Water is flow, yes, but too much held too long becomes stagnation. A puddle that never dries, a sponge that never breathes, and moisture-heavy plants send that exact signal. They absorb, they hold, but they rarely circulate or lift. They weigh the entrance down quietly and you begin to feel it, in your limbs, in your focus, in the way your mornings feel harder than they should, even when nothing is wrong. I remember walking up to a home where 2 large ferns flanked the door. Beautiful, yes, but the porch was always damp. Mildew gathered on the mat, the light never felt crisp. The homeowner, a retired teacher, described her daily rhythm as slow to start and easy to lose. Her to-do lists kept getting rewritten, her sleep felt foggy, and she couldn't shake the feeling that life was passing her in soft motion. When we finally removed the ferns, replacing them with plants that held structure and light, the shift was subtle but powerful. She began to feel time again, energy, warmth in the morning. Her posture changed. Her steps felt less like wading and more like walking, because that's the message of moisture-heavy plants at the entrance. Don't move too fast, don't rise, don't change. They hold, they soften, but in doing so they also stall. They trap energy in a kind of emotional humidity, a space where ideas get heavy, decisions feel delayed, and motivation never quite lands. This doesn't mean these plants have no place. In shaded corners of a lush garden, in bathrooms where they echo the water element gently, they can be lovely. But at the threshold where energy should enter with clarity and pace, they become counterproductive. They say stay still, stay low, stay damp, and emotionally that starts to echo. You might notice indecision where there used to be momentum, relationships that feel like they've grown too quiet, too soft, a home that feels cozy but in a way that edges toward inert. Because moisture that sits too long doesn't nourish, it molds. If you've been feeling emotionally soaked lately, like you're carrying more than you can articulate, like your days are moving but not lifting, it's worth asking what lives at your entrance. What kind of tone is being set at the very edge of your life? To shift it, you don't need to throw everything away. Start by touching the leaves. Are they always wet? Do they feel too full, too heavy? Does the soil dry out or stay damp long past watering? Then look at the space around them. Is the air fresh? Is there light? Or has the entrance become a pocket of stillness that's lost its clarity? If so, choose replacements that offer structure and breath. Think plants with upright growth, drier leaves and room for airflow, grasses, olive trees, boxwood, even ornamental citrus. Plants that say, I stand tall, I dry in the sun, I grow upward, not just outward. You might also consider hardscaping near the threshold, smooth stone, terracotta parts, or metal accents to hold energy in place without soaking it up. And keep water features if you love them in movement, fountains over bowls, circulation over stillness. Because the goal at your entrance isn't just beauty, it's clarity, it's motion. It's the feeling of stepping into life, not stepping into something that wants you to linger and delay. You deserve a home that greets you with lightness, that clears your mind instead of clouding it, that dries your spirit enough to let it rise again. So today, just pause at your door. What's the air like? What's the weight like? And is your home asking you to come in or asking you to stay stuck? Because sometimes what seems lush is actually holding you underwater. Final, maybe today you looked at your front yard and saw beauty. But beauty, as we've learned, can carry more than color. It can carry weight, memory, protection, delay, and sometimes the quiet reasons we still feel stuck. This isn't about being afraid of plants, it's about listening to them, to what they whisper when we pass by, to what they hold for us, thorns we never questioned, shadows we forgot to clear, vines we let creep into our lives because they were familiar. Every threshold tells a story, not just of design, but of energy. And when you step through your own door each day, the energy you pass through matters. It speaks before you do. It shapes the way your thoughts form, the way your decisions land, the way joy or heaviness enters with you. So if something felt off in your life, maybe it wasn't all in your head. Maybe it was in the roots, the leaves, the corners of your porch no one ever questioned. Thank you for being here, for pausing, for looking again softly, bravely, gently. May your home become lighter. May your path grow clearer. And may the next thing that walks into your life feel like it belongs. You deserve an entrance that invites joy, not ghosts. Clarity, not confusion. Growth, not restraint. Take a breath, take another look, and begin again. This time with intention.